Hello, BookTube. It's Tuesday, so it's time for Tag Tuesday, and I just saw one called the Spoiler Tag, done um, by the Book Eclectic, and this was something that was done originally or it's an original tag by Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. It was done a couple months ago. I don't think I've seen it anywhere else, or I might have, but I've forgotten about it. That wasn't a great time for me. But yeah, so I thought I'd do this one. It's about spoilers, and it's question number one. What do you consider a spoiler? To me, a spoiler is uh, is basically, yeah. If it's revealing, like if it's crime fiction and it reveals the murderer at the end or the culprit that did this, and that's a big part of the plot, and that's the ending, that would be a spoiler. Or any twists and turns where, character changes, that, oh, this character is, uh, playing a hobo or something like that, or, a down and out person, but he's actually aristocratic and things like that. Those are sort of things that, but it doesn't mean it ruins it for me. It just means that those are the spoilers to me. Knowing what the story is about is not a spoiler. And number two is, does the genre you're reading impact what you consider to be a spoiler? Basically, yeah, because if it's crime fiction, if it hinges on not knowing who X is or what X is doing, and that is more so in crime, but it can be anything. Like the twists, as I mentioned, can be in any kind of genre. So it's individual to a book then, but definitely crime would be at the top of my list for that kind of spoiler of finding out who the culprit is. But however, sometimes at the beginning you find out, exactly who it is, but as reader, who's done it, but nobody else does, and the joy is watching them figure it out, or the detective or someone figuring it out, who did X and who did Y. Um, Number three, all the best bits are in the trailer. Sometimes the synopsis can be too detailed. Do you research books prior to reading them, or do you prefer to know nothing about the book? I don't research them. It's a term that's just so misused today. People think that, putting in something into the internet is research. Well, you're looking up something. It's not research is it's not that superficial. Research is really detailed. So, um, yeah, I don't like that term for something like this. I do look into. I do want to know what the plot is. I do want to know what the story is about. For instance, this here, The Uninvited by Dorothy McCardle. I read this Sunday and yesterday. Finished it yesterday, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But it's just I knew from the outset that it's a ghost story, and I knew. And I read the back and I go, oh, it's set in Devon, and it's pre-World War II, so all those are sort of ticking boxes. And at that point, I don't need to really know that much more about it. I do sort of look at, oh, who the author is. What has she done before? What other books has she done? Have I read anything else by her, possibly? Even though the name sort of escaped me at the time. I already sort of knew this book, or knew the story, partially, from a film, so that's something else. But and days that I would go into a bookshop that had a lot of fiction, say for instance, and I would just pull stuff off the shelf. I've never seen it before, and I pull it off. Especially like a lot of times it had to do with sort of the publisher, because it was certain publishers that I knew had stuff generally that I would read or want to read. So I'd pull something off. I'd read the back of it, I was going, oh yeah, that doesn't really, nah. I put it back, and it pulls up. Oh, that sounds a bit interesting. Oh, what is this? And sometimes I don't even look at the title before I read the synopsis, and then I'd look. Okay, well that does sound pretty good. When was it written? And you open it up and read a little bit. So these are the kind of things. To me, this is not research. This is just sort of just looking at the specs, sort of a book. Um, and if all those things tick, then I buy it, because I don't understand. I just can't understand why somebody would just pick up a book and go, oh, okay, I'll read that. I don't need to know what it's about. You need to know. I need to know what the plot is. Like, what is it about? Like this one here that I'm reading now. Well, it's two novels in here, the Berlin novels of Christopher Isherwood. He's an author that I've always wanted to read. I just never got around to reading him, and I picked this up cheaply, and I sort of I knew that when it was set, and sort of a general storyline, and I thought, well, yeah, because I wanted to read something about that is Berlin, but I want 20s Berlin, but this is like early 30s Berlin, so I figured, okay, well, even so, I'll take a gander at it, and I'm thoroughly enjoy it. But if I didn't know who he was, like I just wouldn't. Well, by title, I'd be maybe interested in Berlin and go, oh, okay. But I need to know what it's about. I need to know sort of that it is, or when it's set in Berlin, when it was written. And I just, yeah, it defies my understanding of how you would pick up something without knowing anything about it, without knowing even the briefest thing, whether it's crime fiction, science fiction. Sometimes you can tell by the covers, but that's making huge assumptions on things. Um, so sorry, I'm just turning off sound here. Um, yeah, it's huge assumptions, and you pick up something and then you realize, well, that's not what I wanted. Like I say, the things that I would pick up and read, like I read the synopsis, and then I'd want to read the style of writing, and that's what I like to do. Recently, I read something that I've wanted to read for a long time, but I'd never actually looked at the style, so the style shocked me a little bit. That chances are, if I would have picked that book up and looked at the style of writing, or knew what the style of writing was, I would have put that back on the shelf. I would not have picked that up, at least now. But yeah, so a detailed, yeah, it doesn't have to be detailed, but it can be, as I say. And trailer, well, I do like trailers, films, old films, because that gives, if it's a movie that I haven't seen before, and I go, oh, that looks interesting. Oh, the photography looks interesting. Then, oh, it's got so and so in. Oh, yeah. Oh, I find out it's directed by so and so, or written by so and so, or based on so and so's book, and that gets me in. So I learn a little bit before I do this. Okay, let's get moving. Number 4. Sometimes the introductions or translator notes can spoil the ending, especially for classics. Has this ever happened to you? Not the ending. I'm not, like I say, it's that doesn't really bother me so much. What I dislike, not going into a book that I don't know already, is somebody telling me what I'm supposed to get from this, what I'm supposed to understand, telling me this is what it means. I don't want that. I want to read it, make up my own mind, and then read the introduction and go, oh, okay, well, I missed that. Oh, yeah, okay, that's a different aspect. I don't want to be, uh, you know, um, it's not the spoiler aspect of it. It's like I don't want to be told, oh, this is a book about X, meaning and stuff like that. The interpretation, that's what I dislike regarding reading that stuff. The critical apparatus before I've read the text. Uh, Number 5. Name a time somebody spoiled a novel for you. I don't think anybody spoiled a novel for me at all. A few times, people have said something and it's like, oh, that looks interesting. But no, I don't think anybody's ever spoiled a novel for me, because even if I know detail of what it's about, I can still enjoy it because I'm reading it for a different reason. As I said with the even crime fiction, like I can I prefer probably not know who the murderer is. Say, for instance, if the murderer is revealed in the last paragraph or the last chapter, but that doesn't mean that it would stop me from reading a book. Uh, Especially if the other things tie in. I'm aware of the detective or whatever, or the author, or the setting of it. If I know what the setting is, or the style of writing, I look up and go, oh, this looks interesting. So I'll be reading it for that reason. I won't be reading it for the plot. I read for many different reasons, and they're all usually enjoyable, but they're enjoyable in different levels. 7. If spoilers ruin novels, are there some authors or genres you can't reread? Um, Not really. Not that I can't reread. Because as I say, if I want to reread it, there's a reason for it. It's either for the writing, or the author, or the story that I want to read again. Um, because knowing what happened doesn't ruin the story for me at all. It's like rereading something is like, I don't reread everything. So some things are not worth rereading in my opinion, or for me. It's like, yeah, that was good. I enjoyed that. Move on. Number 8, when reviewing, are you spoiler free? Does this limit your ability to discuss? Yeah, well, I don't review books. It's a bit of a contention with me, because I don't think you can review something properly on BookTube unless you sit there and read a script that's a proper review. And I suppose you could do that, yeah, to make it an audio review. But I do a little book discussion of a few things, and yeah, I'm sure that I do reveal some spoilers for some people, because if somebody doesn't want to know what the book is about at all, then yes, I'm gonna spoil it for them, and I just go, well, then they shouldn't be looking at this if that's what it is. However, when I do discuss this, I might hold back a few twists that are in it, just so, because that is a big point in the story. So I probably will hold that back, because that to me it would be a spoiler. But yeah, it doesn't limit. I don't think it limits me to anything to what I'm going to talk about. Number 9, shout out. Tell us about 5 channels you enjoy, and then tag them. Again, this was done a couple months ago, so I'm not sure who's done this, and I haven't done a search for that. But if it is something that you're interested in, or would like to, talk about spoilers, then feel free to do it. And yeah, I'd like your thoughts on any of these things, because I know I've said a few contentious things, especially about the research. I just think that it's an overused. It's not used correctly. Research is not looking up what the book is about. That's to me, that's not research. That's just looking up the specs on a very superficial level. Yeah, so we'll leave it there, and I hope you like this, but I'm going to continue reading my Berlin novels by Christopher Isherwood. I'm nearing the end of the first volume, first book. I'm hoping actually I might be able to finish the whole thing by tomorrow, and then I'll have to decide what to read next. But anyway, have a good evening, BookTube. Take care.